In my past life, I despised him immensely, yet unexpectedly, it was he who claimed my body and avenged me in the end. Upon my rebirth, with tears brimming in my eyes, I extended my arms toward him. Husband, hold me. His eyes burning red, he grasped my chin tightly. Say that again, and I'll give you my life. Obediently, I called out again, husband. In the next instant, he grabbed a fruit knife from the table and plunged it into his heart. I sat dazed in the hospital, completely stunned. I could never have dreamed that on the first day of my rebirth, my golden thigh would stab himself and end up in the emergency room. The rapid tapping of high heels echoed down the hallway. Before I could even look up, a harsh slap landed on my face. The crisp sound resonated unusually clearly through the empty corridor. The sudden slap turned my head to the side, numbing half of my face instantly. Ching ching. If anything happens to Lian this time, you'll join him in death. I opened my mouth, the movement pulling at my cheek, causing me to gasp in pain. The woman before me glared fiercely, her high heels clicking as she stood firm in front of the emergency room, touching my swollen cheek. I thought of the emaciated figure from my past life tormented by illness and slightly curled my lips. Such strength indicated she was still in good health. Late at night, the red light outside the emergency room finally went off, and the doctor, supported by others, walked out. The surgery was successful. The knife merely grazed the heart without piercing it. He should wake by tomorrow morning if all goes well tonight. The pale-faced man, eyes tightly shut, was wheeled past me to the intensive care unit. Finally having a moment, Mrs. Fu glanced at me and remarked, "Don't you hurry home and change out of those clothes. They're bad luck." I was still in my home sleepwear, and after several hours, the blood that had splashed on it had dried, leaving dark red stains. As the night grew colder, I shivered and said, "I'll just find something to wear in a bit." "Mom, you should go home to rest. I'll stay here tonight." Mrs. Fu seemed surprised when I called her mom, raising an eyebrow. "Really, it rolls off your tongue quite easily, letting you stay here tonight. Can Lian even see tomorrow's sun?" Considering my past foolish actions, I indeed had no credibility with Mrs. Fu. Following her suggestion, I changed my clothes and hurried back to the hospital. Mrs. Fu said little upon my return. Lying down on the bed provided for family members, I climbed onto another bed, resting my head against the headboard and closing my eyes. My dreams were chaotic, a closed door one moment, a raging fire the next, ending with the image of the man covered in blood, his eyes serene yet wild. Startled awake, I took a deep breath to calm my racing heart. After a few breaths, I gently got off the bed and sat on a chair outside the intensive care unit, staring blankly, too. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the glass, Fu Lian was moved from the intensive care unit to a regular ward. I washed my face in the restroom, and by the time I returned, Fu Lian was awake, listening to Mrs. Fu prattle on about something. Hearing my approach, his obsidian-like eyes turned to meet mine, filled with an indecipherable emotion. "Ian," I said, quickly walking over to sit by the bed, in front of Mrs. Fu. "I find it really hard to call you husband." Fu Larian's eyes were fixed on me, and he hummed lightly in response. Afterwards, an eerie silence fell over the hospital room. "Mom," he began, his voice hoarse, "you should go back first." His mother glared at him reproachfully and stormed out with the words, "Just wait for her to be the death of you." Once she left, it was just Fu Larian and me. Lost for words, I fiddled with my sleeve and noticed his lips were chapped. I tried to start a conversation. "Husband, are you thirsty? Would you like some water?" I stood up, poured a cup of warm water, and took a cotton swab, carefully dabbing his lips with the water. As I applied the water, I rambled, "The doctor said you can't drink water yet. Just bear with it a little longer. When you can, I'll help you drink." Fu Larian's gaze stayed on my lips, suddenly asking, "Why did you call emergency services?" He suddenly opened his mouth, almost causing the cotton swab to poke him, startling me. "What?" His tone was mild. "Haven't you always wanted me dead? This time you had your chance. If it weren't for the fact that he was injured, I would have smacked him on the head." "What does he mean, wanting him dead? I'm not a psychopath. Why would I want him dead?" Though I did say that once, it was when he had me locked up and I was speaking out of frustration, and now he's bringing up old grievances. I didn't. He didn't ask further, slightly turned his head away from my hand, and closed his eyes. "Husband." I put down the cotton swab and glass, sat beside the bed. "I know I've been too much in the past, but I swear I won't be anymore. If I ever treat you like that again, may lightning strike me dead." Before I could finish, a large hand covered my mouth, stopping my words. His movement seemed to strain his wound, his eyebrows furrowing slightly. "I've told you, my life is yours to command." I pulled his hand away, earnestly saying, "I really won't do it again." 3. During the night, I stayed by Fu Larian's bedside. As the anesthesia wore off, the pain from his wounds covered his forehead with dense sweat. I prepared a basin of water and gently wiped the sweat from his forehead with a damp towel, smoothing his furrowed brows as he slept. I stood up to dispose of the water when suddenly my hand was grasped. Ching ching. Fu Larian clutched my hand tightly, his voice full of pain. I sat back down, gripping his hand in return. His palm was broad and rough, completely enveloping mine, holding on so tightly that my fingertips turned white. Loving me must be painful, huh? I chuckled self-deprecatingly, utterly foolish, unable to see people clearly, always causing trouble. I wonder what he really likes about me. Do I like him? Maybe I do. After all, there's no one else in this world who would lay down their life for me. But, love, it's hard to call it love. I'll treat him well, maybe even willing to give my life for him, but I know it's not love, it's just compensation. I pressed his hand against my face, looking at his features in the play of light and shadow, and whispered softly, "Ian, I will try my best to love you," he said, his eyelashes quivering slightly in the night. It must be said, Fu Lian's recovery ability was remarkably strong. Despite a stab wound that was nearly fatal, he was mostly healed in just half a month. Those 2 weeks passed peacefully. I brought a few sets of clothes from home and stayed at the hospital to take care of Fu Lian. Although I say take care, I wasn't much help really. It was a private hospital, and the doctors and nurses did everything that needed to be done. All I could do was bring water, deliver meals, and keep him company. Fu's mother came to visit a few times, but each time, her cold-faced son sent her away. I figured if this kept up, I might be able to get out for a bit of fresh air soon. Back at home, I sat on the sofa and let out a long sigh of relief. Although the hospital beds were soft, nothing beat the comfort of home. Buzz, buzz, the phone on the table vibrated twice, and Fu Lian and I both looked over. I felt him tense up momentarily, so I leaned over to kiss his chin and, right in front of him, unlocked the phone. The glaring message on the screen nearly gave me a heart attack. "Lin Lin, ching ching. It's been so long since we last met. I miss you. Let's meet." The breathing of the person next to me hitched, followed by his chest heaving twice. Shoot, I forgot to block him. I quickly and decisively dragged the contact into the blacklist, flipped the phone over, and turned to kiss him. Fu Lian slightly turned his head, and the kiss meant for his lips landed on his cheek instead. "Why not agree to it?" he asked, his tone light but his fists clenched tightly at his side. Clearly, he didn't want me to go, yet he acted as if it didn't matter to him. If I really went, I probably wouldn't be able to leave the bedroom for a month. How awkward, I sighed, prying open his clenched hand. Fresh pinch marks were clearly visible on his open palm. Seeing the deep imprints, I felt irrationally angry. "Why are you pinching yourself?" I poked at his palm. His hand closed, enveloping mine completely. He looked down, his eyes hiding his emotions, and murmured, "It won't happen again. People say man proposes, God disposes." And it turned out I hadn't expected Lin Lin to actually dare to show up at my doorstep. After having breakfast with Fu Lian, I went out to water the flowers in the yard. Just as I was about to head back inside, I heard an annoying voice. "Ching ching, why did you block me? Are you angry that I haven't contacted you for so many days?" I walked forward without turning back, letting his words pass by me like wind. "Ching ching, are you being threatened by Fu Lian? Come out, I'll take you away from him." Yelling in front of Fu Lian's house, was he asking for trouble? If he wanted to die, he shouldn't drag me into it. I turned around emotionlessly and looked at him. "Sir, if it's not too much trouble, could you please leave my doorstep? My husband and I are very happy together, so you don't need to worry." Ching ching. Tired of listening to him, I quickly stepped inside. As I opened the door, I froze. The floor inside was covered with broken ceramics, and Fu Lian stood in the center, his hands bloody, his eyes bloodshot. The butler, Uncle Li, immediately came to my side as I entered. "Madam, call the doctor." I dropped the command and stepped over the broken ceramics towards Fu Lian. The man who had been raging just moments ago rushed over as my foot almost touched a shard and scooped me up, leaving a trail of blood behind him. Half an hour later, Fu Lian leaned on the sofa, his eyes half closed as the doctor treated the wounds on his feet. The doctor carefully extracted tiny porcelain shards from the flesh using tweezers, each piece pulling down droplets of blood that fell to the floor. The person on the sofa wore a blank expression, not even moving an eyebrow. As if the bloodied feet weren't his. After treating the foot injuries, the doctor turned to clean the less severe wounds on the hands. After a while, the doctor stood up and advised, "Be careful with your hands and feet in the next few days, try not to exert any force." Uncle Lee led the doctor out, leaving only Fu Larian and me alone in the vast living room. The man looked up at me, a hint of red in the corner of his eyes. His voice hoarse. "Ching Ching, stay away from him," I sighed, sat beside him, and poked his unharmed forearm, feeling a bit gloomy. "Fu Larian, do you trust me?" Fu Larian seemed not to hear what I was saying, just staring intently at me as if I might vanish into thin air, stubbornly repeating his words. "Ching Ching, stay away from him, he will harm you." I leaned my forehead against his, gently rubbing it, and promised, "I won't meet him again." "Okay, I won't meet him again, but I will still seek the vengeance I am owed. Whatever debts he owes me from past and present lives, I intend to recover them, with interest." It was strange that Fu Larian, despite his anger that day, didn't confine me or anything. With old wounds unhealed and new ones added, his complexion was much worse. The housekeeper felt sorry for him and made nourishing soups every day, but while he didn't improve much, I ended up getting plumper. After overeating soup and hardly touching dinner, I woke up in the middle of the night starving. After tossing and turning in bed, I finally got up to find something to eat in the kitchen. Opening my door, I faintly heard voices. Tiptoeing to Fu Larian's door, I saw it was slightly ajar, and voices filtered through the gap. Great. Checking my phone, it was 1 in the morning, and here he was staying up late despite being ill. I waited outside his door, ready to confront him once he finished his call. Half an hour later, groggy and sleepy, the room finally fell silent. I slapped my face to wake up, stood, and burst through the door. The room was dark, lit only by moonlight streaming through the uncurtained window, casting a faint glow. The figure stood by the window, bathed in soft moonlight, his silhouette hazy. Such a beautiful scene it was, but how could you, with feet full of wounds, stand on the ground? My anger surged instantly. With a snap, I turned on the light, flooding the room with brightness. Then, I got even angrier. Blood-stained bandages were carelessly thrown on the table, and the man, wearing a coat, stood barefoot on the cold floor. Seeing me enter, a rare look of surprise crossed his face. "Fu Larian, do you not care about your feet anymore?" I yelled at him, running over to drag him back to bed, puffing my cheeks. I stood by the bed glaring at him furiously. The person on the bed reached out with slender fingers, carefully hooking my hand hanging by my side. "Ching Ching, don't be angry." A strange feeling intensified inside me. Who is Fu Larian? Domineering, crazy, with extreme possessiveness and controlling desires, often forcing confinement in a dark room. Even now, Fu Larian was undeniably mad, but when it comes to himself, he is ruthlessly harsh, never going easy on himself when it comes to self-inflicted harm. Towards me, however, he's incredibly humble. 8. I gently took his hand and knelt in front of him, my voice softening uncontrollably. "Honey, please take care of yourself. It hurts me to see you like this." Fu Larian just looked down at our clasped hands, silent. I wasn't going to give up without a response, so I shook his hand coquettishly and pleaded, "Please." After a while, just when I thought he was going to remain silent again, Fu Larian quietly hummed an affirmation. Hearing his response, I instantly beamed with joy. I stood up, fetched the first aid kit, and came back. Fu Larian sat obediently by the bed like a good child, letting me dress his wounds as I directed. It turned out that bandaging should really be left to the professionals. After much fussing, I ended up wrapping Fu Larian like a mummy. Looking at his hand wrapped up like a bun, I awkwardly smiled. "Just bear with it for one night, and we'll have the doctor rewrap it tomorrow." Fu Larian seemed quite satisfied with his freshly minted appearance, examining his bandaged limbs before commenting, "Pretty good, since the victim himself said so." I didn't argue. I put the first aid kit back in its place and prepared to head to my room to rest. Just as I was about to leave, I caught a glimpse of Fu Larian still sitting by the bed. On impulse, I walked back to him. "How about I stay in your room tonight to make sure you don't do anything reckless?" Fu Larian suddenly looked at me, something flickering in his eyes. He clearly wanted me to stay. Yet he said, "Don't force yourself, I won't do anything even if you're not here." At that moment, Fu Larian was like a child who desperately wants a candy but insists he doesn't. Maybe these days, my courage had been bolstered by Fu Larian, and I playfully decided to go along with his words, nodding. "Oh, in that case, I'll leave." With that, I turned and headed towards the door. Fu Larian watched me leave without turning back, his eyes dimming instantly, a self-mocking smile playing on his lips. Seeing Fu Larian like this, my heart unexpectedly clenched. I reached the barely closed door, shut it, and winked at him under his puzzled gaze. Alright, get ready to sleep, I'll stay and keep you company. I initially intended to make do with the sofa in the room for the night, but Fu Larian, after getting into bed, consciously made space for me and looked puzzled when I hesitated to join him. Alright. My words might have carried some ambiguity. 9. We were husband and wife after all. Sharing a bed wasn't strange, especially since a sofa is nowhere near as comfortable as a bed. With that thought, I didn't hesitate and climbed into bed, turning off the light to sleep. It was the middle of the night, and after all that fuss, I was quickly enveloped by drowsiness. Within minutes of lying down, my consciousness blurred. In a haze, I felt the person beside me turn over, and a strong, lean arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer to him. After that, I lost consciousness. The next day, I woke up gasping for air, convinced I would have suffocated if I had woken just 2 seconds later. I struggled to lift my head from Fu Larian's chest, taking a few deep breaths of fresh air before I felt better. Despite the commotion, Fu Larian didn't wake up. His arm was still around my waist, preventing me from getting up, and the earlier fuss had chased away any sleepiness. I lay there in his arms, staring blankly, until something caught my eye and I fixed my gaze on it. Streams of light filtered through the gaps in the curtains, casting luminous marks on his face that added a touch of sanctity. His eyes were closed, his expression relaxed, a state I had never seen him in before. It seemed as though this was the first time we shared a bed. Initially, when the Lin family's financial chain broke, I was sold to Fu Lian by my parents to secure funds. It was repulsive to even share a meal with him at the same table, let alone sleep in the same bed. I withdrew my hand and poked Fu Lian's cheek. Surprisingly, it felt good, so I couldn't resist poking him a couple more times. His long eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings, prompting me to stop immediately. Even my breathing lightened. Seeing he didn't wake, I reached out again, this time toying with his eyelashes. As I fiddled, I marveled at how long his eyelashes were. Eventually, the person beside me woke up. His eyes still slightly foggy as he rubbed his forehead against mine before burying his face into my neck. When he looked up again, his gaze had cleared. After breakfast, I had the doctor come over to redress Fu Lian's wounds. This time, I squatted nearby and watched carefully, trying to learn the doctor's technique. While watching, I blurted out, "Should I buy you a wheelchair so you don't have to walk?" Fu Lian, lifting his foot for the doctor to wrap, dismissed my suggestion without even looking up. Given his condition, going to the office was out of the question, but such a large company couldn't just be neglected every day. After the doctor left, Fu Lian went to the study to handle work. Halfway through, I went up to bring him water and saw his hand holding the pen slightly bleeding through the bandage. My mouth worked faster than my brain, blurting out, "Should I help you review the documents?" It was only after speaking that I realized the documents might contain confidential company secrets, not meant for casual viewing. I quickly added, "Your hand." Before I could explain, Fu Lian neatly put down his pen and leaned back in his chair. Alright, then, things turned into me sitting in the office chair reviewing documents while Fu Lian sat beside watching me. I majored in jewelry design with a minor in business during college. Honestly, I wasn't interested in jewelry design. I had initially chosen to study business for my college application, but my parents altered my choice without my consent, claiming, "Why study business? Jewelry design is so much better. Look at other daughters, all studying design." At that time, I couldn't resist, and the only option was to minor in business at university. Even with some business education, I had never really practiced it, so handling documents was still somewhat uncertain. With each document processed, I had to consult Fu Lian's opinion. Though I was the one processing, it was still his intellect at work, though he seemed to enjoy it, even smiling. Gradually, I got the hang of it, no longer needing to consult him for every document, only for those of significant importance. Time quietly passed, and as I laid down the last document, I took a deep breath. "Just need your signature on these." Fu Lian handed me a glass of water. "You can sign them." I took a sip and replied, "Hey, I know this much. I don't have the authority, my signature won't count." "You do, you gave me shares." Fu Lian's casual remark made me jump up from the office chair. The instigator, Fu Lian, calmly reached for the cup I had placed on the desk and took a sip, his gaze seeming to ask, "What's wrong with that?" "It's very wrong." "Okay." I frantically went back and forth with Fu Lian, employing both soft and hard tactics. Through a combination of coercion and enticement, they managed to pry the whole story from him. The share transfer document was tucked within the prenuptial agreement. Before the wedding, my parents presented me with a stack of documents and pressured me into signing them. At that time, having failed to escape, I felt utterly defeated and resigned to my fate, going through the motions like a zombie. Doing whatever they asked of me, I didn't even bother to look through the documents they wanted me to sign. I just signed my name directly. As for my parents, they were eager to be rid of me and didn't care that I was signing what was essentially a contract of servitude. So, did these shares just inadvertently end up in my pocket? I was speechless and choked up. Did you take a course in how to be a dominant CEO or something? Clearly, Fuel Yen had no idea what how to be a dominant CEO was. Seeing his puzzled expression, I took the time to explain it to him properly. After my explanation, Fuel Yen seemed even more confused. This is supposed to be marital shared property. Alright, I give up. This person is so naive. It's hard to believe he grew up in the wealthy elite, in this circle, which marriage isn't bound by a myriad of prenuptial agreements, with each party reluctant to give even a penny more than necessary. Marital shared property, that doesn't exist here. Since the shares have already been given to me, I'm not going to make a fuss about giving them back. Let's just say they're temporarily staying with me until he needs them back. I glanced at the time, quickly signed the documents, and pulled Fuel Yen downstairs for lunch. 12. After eating and feeling full, I wasn't in the mood for a nap just yet, so I settled on the living room sofa and browsed my phone for a while. Fuel Yen sat beside me, reading a book. The time spent lounging always made me feel content. I kicked off my slippers and curled up on the sofa, scrolling through short videos, and eventually, I leaned against Fuel Yan's shoulder. Fuel Yan just felt a weight on his shoulder, as the person beside him leaned back naturally, using him as a support. I didn't know what he was scrolling through, but his pale, delicate feet tapped rhythmically on the sofa. Fuel Yan silently curled the corners of his mouth, suppressing the urge to pull me into his arms, and adjusted his sitting position to make me more comfortable. Take it slow, he told himself, don't scare her off. One day, she will willingly let him embrace her, never to part again. Suddenly, the weight on his shoulder lightened as I sat up straight, my expression serious as I stared at my phone screen. Genius designer, first interview with the creator of the Pluto necklace. The glaring red text and exaggerated statements instantly caught the eye, with a typical marketing voiceover emphasizing it again through the Bluetooth headphones. Watching the familiar yet unfamiliar necklace displayed in the video loop and the frequently mentioned designer's name, a cold smile formed on my lips. Lin Cha, you're back too. 13. The Pluto was a necklace I had designed in my previous life, back then, confined by Fuel Yen at Mingshui residence. Only a handful of people had seen the design, including the siblings Lin Lin and Lin Cha. From the start, I knew Lin Lin's intentions were not pure, but he was the only one who could help me escape from Fuel Yen at that time, so I played along, pretending to be deeply in love with him, even deceiving Fuel Yen, and Lin Cha was always by his side, his so-called little sister. I had only intended to use him to escape. So I turned a blind eye to the overly affectionate behavior of this brother and sister duo in front of me. Although they weren't always the sharpest tools in the shed, they indeed did their best to help me escape from Mingshui residence. That night, I took only the half-completed design and resolutely followed them from one abyss into another. To avoid Fuel Yan's pursuit, we started moving from one remote area to another, hiding wherever it was secluded. With our limited skills, we managed to stay hidden for over half a month. Initially, Lin Lin and Lin Cha pretended to be nice to me, but their true colors showed as time went by. In the small mountain village, there was only one bedroom in the dilapidated house, which naturally they occupied, leaving me to sleep on a straw mat in the so-called living room. During the night, the noise from the bedroom would often keep me awake. While dealing with them, I secretly planned for the future. Everything went as I expected. But I underestimated the extent of human malice. On the last day of our half-month escape, Lin Lin produced a document and tricked me into signing it. It was a simple property transfer agreement. I signed it without blinking, as I didn't know about the wealth Fu Larian had left me. I thought I was penniless. Why should someone who's barefoot fear losing their shoes? I thought they'd abandon me once they achieved their goal, and then I could find a deserted corner to live my own life. Unexpectedly, that night, they unusually gave up the bedroom to me. That night, a huge fire broke out, the room was locked, and my memories from my previous life ended there. after I died, my mind only retained fragmented and vague memories. While I was lost in thought, a pair of strong hands suddenly wrapped around my shoulders from behind, pulling me back so forcefully that I fell into Fu Larian's arms. I immediately sensed that something was off with Fu Larian's mood. His grip on my shoulders was so tight it almost suffocated me. The body behind me was hot and tensed, trembling imperceptibly. At that moment, I didn't care about Lin Cha or Pluto anymore. I threw my phone aside, and with my freed hands, I touched his trembling hands gently. "Honey, what's wrong?" As I spoke, I stroked his hands softly, calming him like one would soothe an agitated cat. There was a long silence behind me. Only his heavy breathing could be heard. I reached for his forearm, patting it gently. After a while, the hands around my shoulders withdrew, and suddenly my chin was lifted. Fu Larian kissed me aggressively, without any finesse, as if he was trying to vent something yet desperately holding back. After the kiss, we both gasped for air. When I recovered from the breathlessness and looked up again, he was already gone. That evening, Fu Larian didn't return to Mingshui residence. He only sent a message telling me to rest early. The butler mentioned that the master was dealing with some difficult work issues and wouldn't come home to rest that night. Lying in bed at night, with my eyes closed in the darkness, I kept replaying the afternoon's events, unable to pinpoint what had triggered Fu Larian's emotional change. My thoughts were chaotic, my mind a mess, tossing and turning in bed, all filled with thoughts of him. Suddenly, I sat up in bed and leaned against the headboard, sighing. After zoning out for a second, a realization dawned on me. Had I fallen in love with Fu Larian, I'd get angry if he were hurt. I'd want to cheer him up if he was unhappy. I couldn't stop thinking about him when he wasn't around. Even when recalling the darkest moments of my past life, they seemed less frightening now. I twirled my fingers, then let go, a slight smile appearing on my lips. To love is no big deal, if heaven has given me a second chance. Do I really have to keep suppressing myself? Wait, reborn. A spark of realization flashed through my mind. As if the fog was lifting, I was reborn, and so was Lin Cha. Then why couldn't Fu Larian be reborn too? That would explain everything. In this life, his restrained and humble love, and his unusual emotional fluctuations after seeing Pluto. All these abnormalities now made sense. My heart thudded violently, pounding against my chest. I wanted to see him. To see him right now. 15. The number you have dialed is currently unavailable. The call was automatically disconnected due to no answer for a long time. I stubbornly dialed again. Dial tone, ching ching. Fu Larian's somewhat hoarse voice came from the other end of the phone. "Honey, I miss you." Half an hour later, Fu Larian returned to Mingshui residence, bringing with him the chill of the late night. Seeing me quietly waiting for him on the living room sofa, Fu Larian's eyes darkened. He walked over in 2 or 3 steps, looking as if he wanted to embrace me. But he didn't. "I'm going to change my clothes." I stopped him as he turned to leave, turned off the living room lights, and we both headed to the upstairs bedroom together. After Fu Larian showered, I was leaning against the headboard waiting for him. After changing his bandage, I lay on the bed and snuggled into his arms, my hand resting on his waist. I could clearly feel his body stiffen for a moment. But he then took the initiative to wrap his arm around my shoulders. "What's wrong?" His large hand stroked my head, comforting me like a child who had been bullied. Clearly, my unusual behavior made him think I had been wronged. I tightened my grip around his waist and buried my face in his chest. "Honey, I won't follow Lin Lin and Lin Cha anymore." Fu Larian's breathing paused for a few seconds, then he lifted me from his embrace, his eyes red, his voice trembling. "What did you say?" I leaned in to kiss the red corner of his eye, and looked into his eyes firmly. "Honey, I won't make the mistakes of my last life. This life, I will love you properly." After a passionate encounter, I lay in Fu Larian's arms, too tired to even keep my eyes open, yet I managed to keep them open long enough to admonish him. "You must not do anything illegal. I will reclaim what Lin Lin and Lin Cha owe me." "Okay." I leaned in and muttered, "Of course, you'll have to help me if I can't handle it." He chuckled softly and continued to respond, "Okay." Satisfied with his answer, I fell into a deep sleep. 16. The next morning at breakfast, I sat opposite Fu Larian, observing him. Why did it feel like after last night, Fu Larian's entire demeanor had changed? Perhaps my gaze was too direct. Fu Larian looked up and gave me an inquiring look. Cough, cough. I averted my gaze, suddenly remembering something, and spoke. "By the way, how's Mom? We make her go for a medical checkup every year." "That's good." After breakfast, I processed Fu Larian's work with unprecedented speed before diving into the study, not emerging until dinner. During this time, Fu Larian didn't ask what I was doing, just brought me water and snacks several times and joined me for a simple lunch in the study. For the next few days, I buried myself in the study, working hard until I finished what I wanted to do. As for what I was doing, after sorting out the emotional issues between my dear husband and me, it was time to deal with the Lin siblings. Honey, I ran to Fu Larian with a stack of papers, my eyes sparkling. Can you do me a favor? 3 days later, the Fu Corporation's jewelry design subsidiary unexpectedly launched a new seasonal design collection without any prior notice. This new item caused a huge stir online, primarily because the newly released necklace not only shared the name Pluto with a design that had recently gone viral online but also bore an extremely similar style. The jewelry company was instantly embroiled in a plagiarism scandal, with a barrage of negative comments online. Lin Cha, another key figure in the incident, posted a private message on social media on the night of the new release, directly accusing the company of copying her personal work. As the controversy continued to ferment, the jewelry company remained silent. Just when the situation seemed to be escalating, the company suddenly announced that a press conference would be held at 9 a.m. the next day, where the designer of the new product would address everyone's questions. Relax. Backstage, I poked Fu Larian's tightly pursed lips. I can handle this. As a staff member reminded me it was time to go on stage, I winked at Fu Larian and smiled. Wait for my victorious return. The moment I stepped onto the stage, the glaring flashlights flickered incessantly, and the noise from the audience was overwhelming. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, good day. I am Lin Qingqing, the designer of this season's product. The crowd stirred again. Ladies and gentlemen, I know what you are most concerned about is the recent plagiarism incident, and I will explain. Before I do, I'd like you to look at some images. I turned around, and the large screen behind me displayed several detailed images of Pluto. Now, please look at this next set of images. The screen changed to show another set of images, taken from the same angles as the first. I believe you can all see the differences between the two sets of images, so I need not elaborate further. One set displayed the widely available details of Lin Cha's Pluto, and the other was my design. Previously, looking at Lin Cha's Pluto alone might have been impressive, but when both sets of images were compared side by side, even non-professionals could see that the former's details were abrupt and disjointed. After all, Lin Cha had only seen an unfinished preliminary draft. It goes without saying who originated the design and who plagiarized. Amid the silence, a voice suddenly asked, "How can you prove you're the original creator if you just modified her design?" I smiled slightly. I will publicly release my design drafts later. And I also hope Ms. Lin Cha will do the same. Oh, and, I added, as if it had just occurred to me, the public photos of Ms. Lin Cha's Pluto seem to only show the front view. I wonder if she could show us all angles. After the press conference, the company's official blog immediately released the design drafts and detailed photos of the new product from every angle. As for Lin Cha, she has not said a word online since the press conference, despite numerous comments urging her to release her design drafts and detailed photos from multiple angles. She remained silent, as if she had vanished. At that moment, a prominent industry figure spoke out, directly accusing Lin Cha's design item of clear plagiarism, noting that she had not only copied my Pluto but also other publicly disclosed designs from different designers. From then, Lin Cha's reputation in the design world was utterly ruined. Overnight, the once genius designer fell into the mud, becoming a target of public scorn. As much as people had praised her before, they criticized her even more harshly now. As for Lin, there's even less to say. Before he approached me in his previous life, he had entangled with several wealthy women. All I did was send a copy of the evidence to each of these wealthy women and their husbands. That was enough to deal with him. In the middle of the night, lying in Fu Larian's arms, I received a call from Lin Cha. On the phone, she screamed heartbreakingly, "Lin Qingqing, you only rely on men. Without Fu Larian, you are nothing. Why do you even compare to me? This lady might be seriously ill." I couldn't be bothered to argue with her and just hung up the phone. Please, if someone is willing to help, why should I struggle alone and get hurt? That would be foolish. The plagiarism incident was perfectly resolved. There were even some unexpected delights. Following this incident, the Fu Corporation's stock rose by several percentage points. I even gained a small group of fans, many of whom were willing to pay a high price for me to design jewelry for them. After completing another order, I grabbed my bank card and excitedly ran over to Fu Lian, slapping the card against his chest with authority. I'm officially a little rich lady now. I'll take care of your living expenses from now on. Alright. Fu Lian picked up the card from his chest, holding my hand with a smile. Then you'll have to cover my living expenses for the rest of my life. From the restaurant, the voice of Fu's mother, filled with exasperation, called out, "You two have had enough, come and eat." Coming. I gripped Fu Lian's hand back, pulling him up, and ran towards where Fu's mother was. Story 2, on the day I married Shinbai, his first love committed suicide by jumping off a building. On our wedding night, my husband held the body of that woman and wept until his voice was hoarse. He said, "Ying, if it weren't for your relentless pressure, how could she have died?" Afterward, on every anniversary of our marriage, he would dress in a black suit and visit her grave. "He killed my cat and forced me to have an abortion," he said. "Furong is dead. How can you smile so happily? You must live the rest of your life in repentance." When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my college days, before Furong had died, and before I had married him. There was still time. This time I would let him and Furong be together, inseparably locked forever. In May, the air, no longer mild with spring, carried a hint of scorching heat. The sun shone brilliantly. I watched Shinbai running around the basketball court, sweating profusely. It was only after the game ended that I realized I had been reborn, back in my college days. Next would be the classic scene where Furong brings Shinbai water, but this time, I smashed her water bottle. My thoughts echoed slowly in my mind. In my previous life, just as Shinbai was finishing his game, I excitedly ran to the supermarket to buy his favorite drink and water for his teammates. After paying, I realized that Furong, who had planned to come with me, was nowhere to be found. I didn't think much of it, assuming she was busy with something. I sent her a message and then carried the heavy mineral water towards the basketball court. As I approached, I could hear the cheers. I quickened my pace, but when I reached the court, I saw everyone surrounding Shinbai. In his hand, he held a cup adorned with Peppa Pig. It was unmistakably Furong's cup, and there he was, unabashedly opening it and taking a drink. Shinbai and I grew up together, and since we were little, our elders joked about betrothing us. From the age of 7 or 8, he liked to call me little wife, always making me blush. So, I knew Shinbai was a germaphobe. We often studied together in high school, and once I accidentally drank from his cup. Although he didn't say anything, his normally calm brow was deeply furrowed. Later, I saw the cup I drank from discarded in the trash. Since then, I knew he had a strong aversion to germs, just like his mother. Seeing Shinbai drink from Furong's cup made me realize they had been hiding a deeper connection from me. Had they exchanged bodily fluids? Was that why he no longer physically recoiled from her? In an instant, I felt nauseated. Meanwhile, I also remembered, I'm not sure when it started, but Shinbai always includes a mango-flavored milk tea whenever he buys some for me. I'm allergic to mangoes, and Mu Furong likes mango flavor. Whenever he gives me a gift, Mu Furong inevitably receives the same. In a past life, I raised the issue, but he just smiled and said, "Ying, she's your best friend and she's not well treated at home. If we don't treat her well, who will?" It seemed reasonable. In my past life, my thinking was simple, never questioning deeper motives. Even before this basketball game, it never crossed my mind that Shinbai might like Mu Furong. After all, he had promised me early on that he would marry no one but me. 2. In kindergarten, he always saved his share of candies for me. In elementary school, if other kids pulled my hair, he would pull me behind him and fight them, 1 against 5, covered in bruises. He would say that he was a man and it was his duty to protect me. During our middle school years, amidst the throes of young love, while other students avoided relationships, fearing a bad reputation for puppy love, he would buy me soda, catch cicadas for me, and pick flowers. He once told me privately, "Ying, we are meant to be together, so it's okay for us to be closer than others at this time." I laughed, feeling a bashful flutter in my heart, my smile sweet and tender. In high school, amidst the rigors of academia, we became the brightest spots in each other's lives. To be with him, I gave up my strengths and chose science, pushing myself to the limit with endless studying. My efforts paid off, and we ended up at the same university. From then on, we were inseparable, the envy of others. So, in a past life, when I discovered his secret dealings with Mu Furong, I couldn't hold back. I rushed forward and smashed Mu Furong's water cup to the ground. He froze for a moment, probably feeling that I had embarrassed him in front of everyone. He shoved me hard. By a twist of fate, I stumbled backwards, tripped over a rock and fell, sprawling ungainly on the ground. It was quite undignified. The surrounding students mocked me loudly. He acted as if he hadn't seen me fall. Bending down to pick up the pink water cup, I landed hard on the concrete, the pain bringing tears to my eyes. Struggling to get up, I noticed blood on my palm from scraping it on the ground. Beside me, Mufaron, seeing me rise, quickly started with a plaintive tone, "Ying, don't be mad. I just saw that big brother Shen was sweating a lot under the sun, and I was worried he might get dehydrated." Her voice trailed off as she looked down, twisting her fingers. Tears streaked down her pale face, truly a sight that evoked pity. As she spoke, she reached out to pull me in. I shrugged off her hand, and she hurriedly retreated to Shenbai's side. "Big brother Shen, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have offered you my water bottle. I saw you sweating a lot. I'm sorry." She continued to apologize. "Please don't be angry with Sister Ying. It's all my fault. I didn't think it through." Shenbai remained cold-faced, relentlessly insisting that I apologize to Mu Furong, accusing me of being unreasonable. He even questioned me. "What's wrong with taking a sip from someone else's water bottle? Do you want me to die of thirst?" "Ying, I really didn't know you were so petty. Furong is your friend, your best friend. Can't you be more accommodating? When we get married in the future, will you be intolerant even of a female mosquito near me?" His buddies laughed exaggeratedly at this. Someone even joked that my jealousy stemmed from my deep care for Shenbai. "Lucky you, brother Shen." Everyone was teasing and making a fuss. That day, I turned and walked away, crying all afternoon. Later, he came to coax me, his eyes reddening as he saw the injury on my hand. "Ying, I'm sorry. I had just come off the basketball court and was really thirsty. When I saw her offering the water, I couldn't help myself. I didn't realize how much it mattered to you. It's all my fault, but Furong is your best friend. You guys share a dorm room. I only see her as a little sister, nothing more. I was worried you might accidentally trigger her condition. I got a bit anxious and pushed you. Please don't be mad." That evening, he took me out for dinner and bought me gifts, looking at me with eyes as tender as one would look at a beloved dog. "Yes, Mu Furong has depression." She said she felt suffocated at home, that whatever she did was wrong. She comes from a family that greatly favors males over females, where her brother is treated like a king. And even her grandmother won't let her sit at the table to eat. She could only eat what her brother left behind. Mu Furong told us, "I really can't stand my brother. He spits in the food while eating, and I can only eat what he leaves behind. If I don't eat, I go hungry. I feel nauseous with every bite." At that time, everyone in our dorm felt sympathetic and comforted her, considering her depression. We all tended to give in to her. 3. "Hey, aren't you going to buy some water?" Mu Furong's voice brought me back to the present. In a past life, she used the excuse of me going to buy water to hurriedly bring water to Shenbai, blatantly challenging me. I glanced at the Peppa Pig water bottle she hugged in her arms and said with a smile, "Why buy water when you've already brought some?" It must have been my meaningful smile that, for a moment, left her somewhat flustered. I stood up and ran towards the school's convenience store. Perhaps Mufurong thought I was going to buy water. Yes, I did go to buy water, but I only bought one bottle. Twisting off the cap, I gulped down several mouthfuls. Under the blazing sun, I felt like I was turning into dried salted fish, and I didn't even like basketball. Well, apart from the earth, I'm not really into any other ball games. I took out my phone and called my mom. After exchanging a few pleasantries, I got to the main topic. "Mom, let me tell you a secret. Shenbai is dating someone now." "Ha ha ha," I said cheerfully over the phone. On the other end, my mom was clearly taken aback. After a pause, she asked me, "Ying, what's going on? Aren't you and Shenbai in a relationship?" "Mom, how could you misunderstand?" I hurriedly explained. "Shenbai and I just grew up together. If you must blame someone, blame yourselves for always teasing us since we were kids, but really, all there is between him and me is that we grew up together. Perhaps a bit closer than others." "Mom, think about it. We grew up peeing and playing in the mud together. How could we possibly date?" I deliberately laughed lightheartedly and added, "Let me tell you, the aloof, handsome guy at our school is really good looking. I'll try my best to win him over." "Oh, but let's not talk about me. Let's talk about Shenbai." My mom was clearly confused, and after a long while, she finally said, "All right. Let's talk about Shenbai. What's going on with him? Is he really dating someone?" "Yes, he is even sharing a water cup with a girl, but that's not the point. The main thing is, he managed to get a girlfriend and didn't even treat us to a meal. Can you believe that? My mom, speaking earnestly, said, that's too much. Then, she asked about the aloof, handsome guy at school. I told her I was working on it. After chatting for over 10 minutes, just as I was about to hang up, my mom suddenly asked me, Ying, give me a straight answer. You and Shinbai, are you really not dating? Mom, it could be anyone but him, I said decisively. On the other end, my mom seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. I too exhaled deeply as I hung up the phone. In my previous life, I was naive and unaware of our family business matters, but in this life, I know it's a critical point. The Shin family is facing major financial issues and is seeking financing. If the financing fails, the Shin family will face the risk of bankruptcy. In my previous life, my family invested in theirs because Uncle Shin told my mom, your Ying's heart is entirely with my boy, and sooner or later, we will be one family. In this life, I made it clear to my mom that I do not love Shinbai. We will not get involved with the Shin family's business. Letting go of Shinbai feels really good. When you no longer love someone, that sense of relief and joy truly promotes mental and physical health. In my previous life, I suffered from depression under Shinbai's emotional abuse, eventually succumbing to breast cancer. In this life, for the sake of my own health, I should love myself a bit more. I was drinking a beverage as I walked to the court and, sure enough, there was Shinbai, tilting his head back, drinking from a Peppa Pig cup, gulping loudly in the sun as his Adam's apple bobbed. Seeing me, he hurriedly stopped drinking and walked over. Ying, where have you been? He asked with a smile. By the way, did you buy water for our teammates? I shrugged and smiled. Not yet, the supermarket is just over there, only a few steps away. While talking, my gaze fell on the water cup in his hand. He seemed to notice something and hastily handed the cup to Mu Furong. Mu Furong took the cup, a barely noticeable look of disappointment in her eyes. Then she spoke softly, Ying, I think Shinbai was just too thirsty, so I let him use my cup for a bit. Don't get the wrong idea. I pretended to be confused. What wrong idea? Oh, I asked with a grin. Furong, you wouldn't happen to like Shinbai, do you? Mu Furong's face turned pale, and she fidgeted with the hem of her shirt. A flash of panic also crossed Shinbai's eyes. I covered my mouth, chuckling. What's this? College is a paradise for romance. Furong, if you like Shinbai, just admit it. Are you afraid of treating us to a meal to make it official? Shinbai suddenly snapped. Enough, Ying, there's a limit to joking, I sneered, thinking to myself about their deceit. Shinbai and his team won the game, and they had a barbecue dinner that night. He invited me, but I didn't go. Mu Furong went. She came back late, her face flushed from drinking, incessantly talking about Shinbai. I pretended not to hear. Before I knew it, it was the beginning of the month, and it was just me and Mu Furong in the dorm. She suddenly asked me, Ying, hasn't your mom sent you your living allowance for this month yet? I nodded and hummed an affirmation, ready to continue studying my vocabulary. Mu Furong said, then, can you give me my living allowance? I almost burst out laughing and teased her. Furong, you should be asking your mom for living expenses. Why come to me? In our previous life, Mu Furong would often cry miserably in our dorm, complaining that her mother favored boys over girls and wouldn't give her living expenses. She also mentioned that she was an adult attending university and should be self-sufficient, suggesting she should get a part-time job. Being a child who grew up spoiled, how could I understand these struggles? Out of righteous indignation, I would take 3,000 out of my monthly allowance of over 10,000 to support her. Unexpectedly, my support led her to feel entitled to ask me for money. I had already thought of a countermeasure and smiled. Classmate Mu, that's not right. Initially, I helped you because I could afford it, and because we shared a dormitory. Supporting you was out of friendship, not supporting you is my right. After all, my family isn't running a charity. Now, I've fallen for a guy. I pretended to be infatuated, holding my cheeks in my hands and looking sorrowfully dreamy at a 45-degree angle. I want to save some money to buy him a gift and then confess my feelings, I said. Mu Furong was planning to act pitiful and ask for support, but after hearing what I said, she was utterly shocked, her mouth wide open enough to fit an ostrich egg. It took her a long while to stutter. Ying, aren't you and Shinbai a couple? How can you confess to someone else? I laughed. It turned out she knew that Shinbai and I were supposedly in a relationship. I deliberately said, Classmate Mu, you must be mistaken. Shinbai and I just grew up together, and it was our elders who joked about us being a couple. How does that make us a couple? if anything, blame Shinbai for having no sense of boundaries, which caused no boys to pursue me in university. I think I should keep some distance from him in the future. Look, I didn't even go out to dinner with him after he won his last match. With that, I threw my arms open dramatically and exclaimed, "Sweet love, here I come." Initially, Mufurong looked upset, but then she burst into laughter, seemingly overjoyed. She probably thought that without me in the picture, Shinbai was all hers, and she could marry into a wealthy family. That afternoon, Shinbai called me to meet at the school's cafe. I went, ready to clear things up. After sitting down at the cafe, he got straight to the point and asked me, "Ying, what are you trying to do?" "What?" I feigned ignorance and asked, "Shinbai, just say what you need to say. We've been together for so long, and now you suddenly go silent. You tell me you want to date a guy, that you like someone else." His voice rose sharply. This caused many in the cafe to look our way, gearing up to catch the latest gossip. With a calm smile, I responded, "Shinbai, when have we ever been in love? Just because our elders joked about it a few times, or because we've known each other since we were kids, you thought it was love?" He suddenly stood up, pointing at me, and said, "Ying, you're just a flirtatious woman. I've loved you wholeheartedly, pampered you, since we were kids. I picked flowers and caught cicadas for you, fought for you, helped you with your studies, and now that we're in college, you just plan to erase all that." He was extremely agitated, even shouting, "Classmates, won't you judge this for yourselves?" The cafe, being on campus, was quite crowded. I stood up and from my bag, I took out a few items and threw them on the table. "Shinbai, don't act like you're so devoted. What about the time you and Mu Furong were in a hotel room exchanging intimacies? Why don't you mention that? If we were really dating, would that not be considered cheating?" I thought, since we all grew up together, I could forgive you for not liking me and liking another girl. So, what now? Am I the flirtatious one? Can't control your own desires, slept with another woman, and you have the audacity to call me flirtatious? While speaking, I threw a stack of indecent photos onto the table and the floor. Grabbing my bag, I turned and walked away. After I was reborn, I immediately hired a paparazzo to keep an eye on Shinbai and Mu Furong, obtaining photos of them together. In fact, these were not intended for Shinbai. After all, he's not married, nor is she. His cheating is his own business. I just need to be clear about it. Not blinded by love like in my previous life, I needed solid evidence to quietly show my parents. To let them know that there's no future between me and Shinbai. No matter what the Shin family says, they should not invest in them. This time, I definitely won't let Shinbai use the family company to bind me for life, nor will I allow him to qualify as the CEO of the group. By evening, the whole school was abuzz with the gossip about Shinbai from the finance department, playing two sides. Hey, did you guys hear? Yes, from your finance department, really good at scheming. Hooking up with another girl while still blaming his childhood friend and girlfriend for fancying someone else. Wow, that's explosive. I dug it up. The affair is with someone named Mu Furong, who's even in the same dorm as his childhood friend. You like Shinbai, and I have no objections to your relationship. But that doesn't stop me from despising you deep down. I don't want to see you. Strawberry Roll quickly pulled me aside and said, "Ying, let's go, don't mind her." Mu Furong's eyes reddened. On the verge of tears, she loudly said, "You all just favor the rich and despise the poor. Seeing my family has no money, you all fawn over Ying." Iris glared at her fiercely and said aloud, "You're broke and still you manage to steal someone's boyfriend." With that, she turned and walked away. In fact, after the affair between Mufurong and Shinbai was exposed, they openly became a couple. It's unclear what set Mufurong off. She started to pick fights with Shinbai, demanding this and that. Always comparing herself to me, she scoffed at clothes worth a couple of hundred yuan for being downmarket, despised non-branded bags as being unsuitable to carry, and criticized jewelry bought from Taobao as trash. She wanted clothes worth thousands, bags worth tens of thousands, and jewelry made of gold, jade, and pearls. Shinbai had a decent amount of pocket money, but he often needed it to entertain his friends lavishly, while it was fine for him to buy small gifts for Mufurong. Spending hundreds or occasionally over 1,000 yuan, buying luxury items like tens of thousands worth of bags or gold bracelets was beyond his reach. He began borrowing money from friends and making excuses to ask for more from his family. Initially, the Shin family was unaware of Shinbai and Mufurong's relationship. The Shin family's finances were in deep trouble, facing the risk of bankruptcy. Shin's father started raising funds everywhere. Naturally, in such situations, close friends and family are the first ones considered. The Shin family had approached my family early on, but my parents, being cautious about business matters, decided to wait and see. Later, after my mom told my dad about Shinbai and Mufarong's affair, my dad was very annoyed and instead invested in another project. I knew that project, from my past life experiences, it was a real cash cow, so I subtly hinted this to my mom. My parents, being astute, assessed and then invested in this project. After learning this, Shin's father came to our house, inevitably reproaching my parents, accusing them of forgetting past friendships and not helping him out. My dad just smiled ambiguously. Then, Shin's father couldn't help but complain about me. Olji, I know my family's finances are in trouble, facing the risk of bankruptcy, so you're reluctant to invest, but think about it, your Ying's heart is all for my son. The Yi and Shin families, sooner or later, will be one family. What's the use of holding on to your money? Listen to that. Is that something one should say? In other words, it's like saying, your daughter loves my son, and since you only have one daughter, all your assets will eventually belong to my son. Whether you give it sooner or later, you'll have to give it. Why hold on to it? To put it bluntly, it's nothing short of extortion. Upon hearing this, my mother couldn't hold back and scoffed coldly. Old Shen, since when has Ying ever liked your boy? They are just two kids who grew up together and went to school together. Don't you dare tarnish my Ying's reputation, and to top it off, your boy has already been dating someone in school. Oh, and I heard she's mentally ill. Shinbai sure has some peculiar taste. As she spoke, my mother threw a stack of photos she had received from me at Shin's parents. Instantly, the expressions on the faces of the elderly Shin couple changed. The Shin family's financing failed, their bank loan was due, and they were sued by the bank. Not only were the Shin family's assets frozen, but their real estate was about to be auctioned off by the court as well. Shinbai was unaware of all these events. Mu Furong, in her desire to marry Shinbai and now without me as an obstacle, was thus doubling her efforts, gently coaxing him with tender care. This greatly satisfied Shinbai's pride and machismo on a certain level. However, the good times didn't last. Just when Mu Furong thought that her relationship with Shinbai was set in stone, Shin's mother found the school and came straight to our dormitory. She slapped Mu Furong across the face upon seeing her. Then, Shin's mother grabbed Mu Furong's hair and started beating her brutally. I'll beat you to death, you shameless tramp, you little vixen. Shin's mother cursed and yelled. Mu Furong was beaten to tears, initially unaware that the fierce old woman was Shinbai's own mother. The situation escalated until the head of the student affairs office had to intervene. It got to the point where we had to call the police. Of course, I also called Shinbai to come over. Only then did Shin's mother stop, and both parties began to mediate. Since we were all from the same dormitory, we went along too. Shin's mother kept insisting that her son and I were the real couple, blaming Mu Furong for seducing her precious son like a siren. I couldn't help but scoff internally. Blaming Mu Furong? Why didn't she blame her son for not being able to keep his pants zipped? In a previous life, she used the same tactic to manipulate me, saying that Mu Furong was the one who truly loved her son and would die for him, and me, having won her son's heart, why didn't I cherish him? In that previous life, I was foolishly in love, thinking Shinbai was perfect. The mistake was mine, and Mu Furong's, not his. Brains are a good thing, but if you're blinded by love, you might as well not have one. The police asked me what happened. How would I know? So, I said, Shinbai and I grew up together, and when we were kids, our parents used to joke and tease us about each other, but now that we've grown up, he has fallen for Mu Furong, and I've fallen for someone else. We have nothing to do with each other. That's common knowledge around our school. Shinbai and Mu Furong were in a relationship that had progressed to physical intimacy. When I shared this with the police, they could only try to persuade Shinbai's mother. Unrelenting, Shin's mother caused a scene, demanding that Shinbai break up with Mu Furong and apologize to me. She also told me, Ying, Shinbai was just momentarily seduced by that wretched girl. Don't be upset. I smiled and assured her that I was not upset at all. Auntie, I'm actually happy that Shinbai has a girlfriend. Why would I be upset? After the commotion caused by his mother, Shinbai finally realized that his family had gone bankrupt. He was no longer the privileged young master of the Shin family. That wasn't the end of it. Apart from bank loans, his family owed money to private lenders and had unpaid staff wages. Amidst his relationship woes with Mu Furong, He had also taken out some online loans to compete with me. He had thought that a mere amount over 100,000 yuan would be easy to handle by causing a stir at home, expecting his normally indulgent mother to bail him out instantly, but now, he was stunned. Like his father, he turned his hopes towards my family, pursuing me with all his might, candles at the dorm door, daily breakfast deliveries, sending flowers. If it had been anyone else, there would have been fans cheering them on, shouting, "Get together." However, at the girls' dorm, just mentioning Shenbai made everyone take a detour. And it wasn't for no reason. His and Mu Furong's indecent photos had hung on the school's public wall for a long time. Just when that scandal had died down, his mother stormed into the school, causing such a scene in the female dormitory that she had to be reported to the police. This gave the school's gossip mongers plenty to talk about. At this point, I, the person involved, wasn't even sure how far the gossip had spread. In any case, I was known as the pitiful one who had been wronged. This morning, Shenbai came again, unable to tolerate it anymore. I threw the rose he handed me onto the ground and exclaimed, "Shenbai, can't you have some shame? You like Mu Furong, why can't you just be with her properly? Mu Furong is making a scene every day, claiming we bully and humiliate her, even threatening to commit suicide in a red dress and haunt us as a ghost. We're almost driven mad by her antics, and you're shameless. I have my dignity, and I want to pursue other guys. Your behavior is essentially harassment. You know, if you keep this up, I'm calling the police." Shenbai stared at me, his expression complex. I didn't bother with him further and hurried off to class with my roommates. These past few days, it wasn't just Shenbai causing trouble, Mu Furong was too. She said to me, "Ying, since you don't like Shenbai, why can't you let us be? We are truly in love. Please, don't compete with me for Shenbai. I really like him, I love him, I can't live without him." She even knelt at the dormitory entrance with a placard. She asked for my forgiveness. I explained to her several times that I really didn't like Shenbai anymore and had broken up with him. However, she went on to cause several scenes with Shenbai. But after Shenbai became aware of his own family circumstances, he felt a chill run down his spine. To him, I was his only shortcut, so he was determined to win me over at all costs, even if it meant exploiting his charm. At this time, he absolutely despised Mu Furong. He believed that Mu Furong had ruined his chances. If it weren't for Mu Furong actively seducing him, how could he have lost control and gotten involved with her? These shameless words came directly from Shenbai himself. Every time he explained the situation with Mu Furong, he claimed she seduced him. He even said that it was normal for a 20-year-old man to have needs. He even told me that it was a sign of his healthy physique. If I hadn't been reborn, I couldn't imagine how my childhood friend, my once close playmate, could become so shameless. As the final exams approached, we were all too busy to focus on anything but our studies. Unexpectedly, right after the exams ended, a strawberry roll, little Iris, and I were leaving the exam hall. We heard someone was threatening to commit suicide on the rooftop of the shopping mall across from us. She was even wearing a red dress. Apparently, she couldn't handle being dumped after a romantic relationship. Something felt off, so I hurried with Strawberry Roll and little Iris towards the mall. It can't be, can it? That foolish woman wouldn't really commit suicide, would she? Strawberry Roll, panting from running, cursed, I hope not. I don't want to deal with such bad luck. Unfortunately, we did end up facing this tragic event. In both her past and present life, Mu Furong couldn't escape the fate of suicide. She already suffered from mild depression, and after being dumped by Shenbai and scorned by everyone else, she became despondent. Shenbai also constantly provoked and insulted her. Eventually, just like in her past life, she resolutely chose to end her life by jumping off a building, but this time, the person who drove her to desperation was Shenbai, who had loved her deeply in their previous life. When we arrived, her body had already been taken away, and a distraught Shenbai was being questioned by the police. Since it was a suicide, Shenbai was quickly released. However, he fell seriously ill after being released, reportedly due to the shock. After all, seeing Mu Furong in her bright red wedding dress dead before him was understandably shocking, but after recovering from his illness, Shenbai began to talk nonsense. He claimed he was the CEO of Qingye Group, owning billions in assets and several luxury houses. He said he wanted to marry me. He staggered to my front door. Coincidentally, my mother, worried that Mu Furong's death might have shocked me, had just taken me on a trip and we were returning home. Seeing him in his disheveled, almost homeless appearance, she frowned deeply, Inging. I found you at last, you see. I was just down on my luck for a while. I will have money, truly, do you believe me? No, that's not right. At this point, he shook his head and said, marry me, Inging, this time I will truly cherish you and never let you down. I was really just deceived by Mu Furong. I called security and had him thrown out. Shenbai went mad. To pay for his medical treatments, Shenbai's parents worked everywhere and borrowed money. Life became even harder and more unbearable, of course. All these had nothing to do with me or my family anymore. A year later, at the business cocktail party of Qingye Group, I ran into Su Yi, the aloof school heartthrob who I often jokingly mentioned to my mom, holding a glass of red wine. He smiled with a refined elegance. Miss Yi, I heard from your aunt that you've admired me for a long time, he said, as he confidently presented his business card QR code on his phone. I felt so awkward I could have dug a castle with my toes. Girls at school who admired him could line up all the way to the Atlantic. Couldn't I just make a casual remark, well then, can I admire you, and maybe we add each other as friends, he said cheerily. What happened to the aloof persona? As the party ended and I was heading to the door, Shinbai suddenly burst out, shouting at me, Inging, it's not like that, it's not like this, how can you fancy someone else? I know you love me, truly love me, as he spoke, reeking and looking like a vagrant. He reached out to embrace me. Because of his beggar-like appearance and the stench he carried, security dragged him away. I walked up to him and just looked at him, and after a long while, I finally said, Shenbai, this time, Ying, have absolutely nothing to do with you, neither does Qingye Group have anything to do with you. Life without you is truly too joyful. I can live happily every day, and as for you, Mu Furong died because of you, in past and present lifetimes alike. You should spend your life repenting in poverty. He stared at me with his mouth agape. Ignoring him, I turned and walked towards the bright future that awaited me.